Let's get into it now. Starting off with Bitcoin as always, and I want to start off here with the crown trading application. Well, because it has some very, very pertinent information, especially for what's going on in the short and medium term timeframes right now. We do see that the global open interest is starting to show a little bit of a tick up right here in the very, 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 very short term timeframe feeds. Now, of course, I want to remind you that you can get all of this data for free in the link in the description below for the crown trading application. And we do have hourly data feeds right here as well, which you can see has ticked up ever so slightly over the past, day, kind of putting a bit of a base right there. Thank you for the finished water. Beautiful. I'm very happy about that. But most importantly, when we go back on over here to the daily, I do want to once again create the case that, hey, it would be relevant to be looking for this to come a little bit further down before looking for a major base on Bitcoin price action to be set. And until that happens, I always want to be expressing caution from that metric, because if Bitcoin does break our short and medium term time frame ranges, that very likely does beget another test of the current lows. Now, that has not happened just yet. We'll go over what sort of criteria would fulfill that, but that is still on the board, and I always want to be cognizant of that because, well, that is, a decent size move from where we're at right now, from about just over 42,000 bucks, kind of in that range between 42 and 44, and that would imply a move all the way down to about $40,000 base if that does happen. With that in mind, I want to bring back the funny rates over here, which actually have ticked a little bit positive. Now, it is it's an incredibly low amount, so really not worth making a humongous deal about. But what is interesting when we go to the hourly data feed right here is that it's actually been steadily trending up since the last almost week now, in fact, going in from negative rates of negative 0.017%, now ever so slightly positive, which again, is not a humongous concern, but it'd make it a lot more easy to call a bounce off this level if we saw a lot more negative rates in this case. And right now, with Bitcoin coming back down to the short-term time frame range zones, well, with funny rates kind of taken up here ever so slightly a little bit, it would gear the probability that we actually might see a bit of a breakdown soon enough. So, of course, at the end of the day, price action matters most, but I do want to be very cognizant of these facts. And then, of course, we do see that the leverage ratio is, well, doing what the leverage ratio does, which is go up and to the right. It's the most bullish fucking chart I've ever seen in my life, and you know what? It looks like it's going to go higher here too. So leverage positions taking over this market as usual. We even see some flows coming into exchanges right here. So about 10,000 Bitcoin sent to exchanges. Which, what are they doing that? They're obviously going to be covering their margin, right? No, they're going to go 100x shitcoin with their Bitcoin as collateral, right? Right? Exactly right. Now, I do want to offer up a little bit of hopium as well. Of course, with the fear and greed index, it does say on the macro scale, it's not necessarily wise to be looking for a humongous washout, even if Bitcoin does break to the downside on the short-term timeframes. We're probably only looking at short-term timeframe moves, to be fair. We're unlikely to be looking at a macro move right here, with the fear and greed index being steadily within the fearful zone for about 2 months now. I think about going on about 2 months. Not exactly 2 months just yet, but again, very similar to what we saw over the summer, where you did spend about 2.5 months within the fearful zone before having that epic bear trap in late July, of course. And then the other point of a bit of hopium that I can provide here as well would be the NUPL, the old NUPL right here. What is the NUPL? Well, in case you didn't know, you can actually just put your little cursor over the light bulb highlighter, and it'll tell you that exactly what it is, which it is the net unrealized profit and loss. And what does it essentially come down to? Well, don't give a fuck about all of that explanation. What I care about is the charts over here. And what do we see? We see that when it does come down to these levels, that was actually where we did find, or not we, but Bitcoin has found its last summer lows. And you can see that it's somewhat comparable with that. It's definitely within the midst of it. Now, we did see it go ever so slightly lower than that, to be fair, on the official bear trap in late July. But in this case, it's starting to be a lot more comparable. So again, underlying market dynamics for the more long-term are pointing towards Bitcoin very likely getting a pretty big reprieve here. Whether it begets one more test of the current lows or not, that is what we're going to discuss on price action. So let's go over here. I'm going to finish off the rest of this damn coffee, and then we'll stab right on into it. Alrighty, so this is the chart that we were working on yesterday. Same chart that we've actually been working on for the past week now, in fact, going back to the 11th or 12th of January of this month, obviously. And once again, we have yet another test to the bottom side of this blue box. Now, that does not constitute a break in and of itself. We need to see a closure. So one of these two metrics would define an actual official confirmed break for myself. One of them being an hourly closure below that wick low that you see from the 14th of Jan, I almost said June, and that would be about 41,600 or so. If that does happen, yes, I am looking for moves back down. We can actually just highlight the targeted region. No, not ellipses. I want the rectangles. I want the blue boxes, peace and prosperity right there. Somewhere down around there would be a high quality play with very likely another short-term bounce implied. And then I want to come back to it after that, not make any further judgments. But for right now, with Bitcoin bouncing off this area yet again, it's not necessarily the most wise thing to be short into. Yeah, I'll pin your message, but can you wait, sir? Seriously. Anyways, let me just wait for this damn thing to pop back on up. And there we go. Okay, pin the message. Elsa's now happy, and well, fair enough. However, there actually would be an implied move a little bit lower than this box, so perhaps I do adjust that. In this case, perhaps it's a little bit more around about 40,000 even, now that I do recognize it. So until that does happen, that is not available, but because we are closer to breaking that end of this territory on the short-term, medium-term time frame ranges, I do think that it's relevant to be, well, at least aware of what would constitute a break in this case, or a 4-hour closure, essentially on new lows here, which is ever so slightly below $42,000. If one of those two things happens, yes, I am looking for this move to populate, and I'd be looking for a bounce somewhere, let's just call it around the current wick lows at about $40,000 territory. However, the big thing would be is, do we get a daily closure below that level as well? If that does happen, then we got big problems for the long term. Until then, I really hearken back to the fundamental data that we just espoused and the on-chain metrics that we just looked at, suggesting that we're probably a lot closer to a major bounce than a major continuation in this case. So with that in mind, if we go over to our momentum oscillators right here and our volatility indicators, we do see volatility is starting to expand off of the basically, as low as it gets in this case, 1 percentiles essentially. So we're very, very likely looking at a resolution of this range, whether it be to the upside or the downside today, around the time that U.S. markets open for, around about 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. I believe that CME chart's a little bit more clean and clear on this one. We got the old cock and balls formation going on right here, of which I want to once again say my piece with this one. Look, we actually do have a bit of a reversal formation going on. So I want to now present a bit more on the hopium scale. Or actually, did I get everything that I want to say about the lower term time frames right here? Yeah, technically speaking, you would actually have some hidden bullish divergence if Bitcoin does put in another low right here. It'd be an ever so slightly higher low compared to this low, and RSI on the 4-hour is already making significantly lower lows. So yes, you would have hidden bullish divergence if this does confirm as a local low. How'd you confirm this as a local low? That'd be about 42,500 on a 4-hour closure, be getting moves back up somewhere around just above $43,000. We're talking about short-term ranges here, to be fair. Anyways, going back on over into the old CME formations right now, I do want to talk about some busting price action here, as we do see what would be considered a bit of a higher low. I think this becomes a bit more obvious on a 12-hour in this case. Indeed, it does, as long as Bitcoin does hold above basically the same levels that we did see on spot as well. And I think that spot's a little bit more clear in this sense, to be quite honest with you. But ultimately, CME does have the formation. So the big one going on here is, of course, this massive falling channel, which does have a higher statistical probability to break out to the upside versus the downside. But what constitutes a breakout to the upside? In this case, at minimum, we need to see a higher low. That's typically what you get first. And then this next part is the most important thing, and that can be of course, a technical target. But what would the next thing be? The next short-term thing would be getting back above that last rejective high that we saw at the end of last week on the 13th of January. That'd be about just above 44,200 or so on CME, depending upon what time frame you're using. If you're using a 12-hour, I'd say it's about 44,000 even. If you're using a 4-hour, I'd say it's about 44,200 or so. And if that does happen, I would start to look for the next move to occur. Now, here's the thing. I would not look for the greater implied target based off of this technical formation right here to play out until we do see a closure above the last rejective high on the medium-term timeframes, which can be about $47,000, I would say. It's actually a little bit lower right here on that last breakdown that we did see in earlier January. So if and when that does happen, I would be looking for this move to play out, or at least that would be my next sort of major, look on price action for that bounce to occur. Now, that again does not necessarily make Bitcoin bullish on the macro. It would certainly align with probabilities of that, but I do want to be on the board on saying this as well, in the sense that, look, if you are bearish, you are very likely looking for Bitcoin to put in a big bounce at some point, which At that point, you'd be looking for your higher term timeframes to put in some lower highs, meaning your 5-day and your weekly, which we actually don't have just yet. And where do you typically look for on those lower highs? Well, typically look for them, statistically speaking, around the 618 Fibonacci retracement, in this case, a bearish retracement, which is right smack dab around that blue box targeted region, if that formation does play out, which again is still very, very far away. So please understand the order of operations here. This is a little bit more hopium for now, but yeah, it does look like Bitcoin to me is at least putting in a bit of a short-term low right here. Even if you're on the hourly, in fact, we do see a somewhat of a reversal formation, which will be confirmed with any sort of an hourly closure above 42,400. So that'd be the shortest of the short-term time frame hopium that I can come up for you right now. And actually do think that will play out, to be quite honest with you. I actually do think that Bitcoin's going to get another bounce around this region right here. And if those levels are cleared, well, we could see targets back up to about $56,000 healthily over the next month or so, but still have some major bearish concerns on the long-term timeframes. Now, I've already obviously put out my long-term macro analysis, and over Sunday, of which I actually do still think that there are several reasons to be looking at Bitcoin. It's very likely put in a major low relatively soon here. However, I will let you view that video at your own leisure because I don't want to get into that whole fucking hour-long discussion right here. So please understand. Anyways, I now want to go over to our momentum charts, specifically our what's it called, our stochastic momentum charts. It's actually not just stochastic momentum. It's actually DMI, ADX, and HVP over here. And by the way, you can find this indicator now on the Crown Trading store. In fact, there is a link in the description below. And well, when it comes down to it, indicators, like, we don't really actually have that many indicators. We have 3 that we've listed over the 4-year operation of this, and of course we only list stuff that I actually use and find value in. This would be one of them, of course. Anyways, I do want to call this out on the daily right here. Daily stochastic momentum is actually going to turn to the upside, or with any sort of a closure today above 41,750, even though right now it does look weak and it does look like it's poised for a downside move. Understand that right now Bitcoin's about $500 above that. So if Bitcoin does close above that today, I would actually be looking at that as yet another signal that Bitcoin very likely does play at a short-term, medium-term time frame move to the upside, and well, that keeps the Bulaw's hopium alive for now. I imagine CME is probably very similar here too. In fact, it didn't even cross down and will be remaining with upside momentum as long as Bitcoin's closing above about 40,900. Now, shorter-term timeframes I think are quite interesting here too. 4-hour stochastic momentum will turn back onto the upside officially with any sort of a closure on CME, with very low volatility right here, and the ADX also taken up as well with any sort of a closure above 42,320 or so. And of course, if we go on over to spot price action, it is actually even a little bit more hopium inducing, as you do see it bounce off the critical zone and will be officially crossing up freshly with any sort of a closure today, or sorry, not today, but on this next, I think we have another closure coming in about an hour and a half or so. Yeah, above $42,000, which obviously Bitcoin is currently trading about $300 above right now. So that would be both on the good scale side of things for at least a short-term bounce here first. Should denote that the 12 hours come in hard down, corrective below 43,500. Buy daily is showing upside momentum still above 41,000, which is good. 5-day, which just closed the other night, has actually come down officially all the way just below $47,000, and the weekly, of course, fully correcting here to about $48,000. So I do think that this aligns a lot more with a greater bounce first before anything else. Bounce targets can very easily come up into the even mid $50,000 territory without really giving us too much on the macro scale to talk about. But I do want to end with the last of the last hopium here, as I realize that this video is probably getting a little bit too long. But basically it is this, as we go back, or actually I should denote this, yeah, hey, we do have daily MACD officially, well, not officially, but continuing with its upside momentum. And then also we do see that the PMAR, of which I want to give a shout out to Mr. Cosmic Whale for this one. We do see it anytime that it's hit these two trend lines right here. We've called some pretty nice tops and pretty nice bottoms. And by the way, that it did hit that trend line yet again on that last test to our current lows of this dumbola party. So that would be indicative that Bitcoin's more than likely setting up for a bounce here. So just be aware of that. All right, what did I want to get into? Yes, I wanted to get into this over here. Hey, TradingView, stop fucking around. Oh, you done goofed now, TradingView. Don't fucking do it. Don't do it. Don't do this to me. This is embarrassing, man. What the fuck's going on right here? For real. Like, all right, I'm just gonna go back to this chart. Oh, motherfucker. Yes, it's working on this one, but why not this one? I'll just refresh that. All right, yeah, changes won't be saved, whatever, don't care. Anyways, you know, we actually do have something that is rather... Oh, there. Oh, come on. Yes. Okay, got it. Okay, we actually do have something that is rather important going on here as well. So I want to call out this. I won't go through the full rigmarole on this one. Again, I'll point you towards the weekend Sunday video if you want the macro hopium. That is the best that I can do for you right there. But in this case, I'll just briefly analysize this. I'm not going to go over the fractal case that we do see between the summer lows and what Bitcoin's doing over here. That again would kind of align with Bitcoin putting another bounce off this region. Again, I'll let you view the weekend video, which goes a lot more into depth on top of that. But what I do want to talk about is the similarities between the formations that we have going on from this segment in the market and this segment in the market. A lot of people calling out head and shoulders, which over the summer, there was an era of that once Bitcoin was right around this region here to June, early June that is. But once it put in this more like slouchy right shoulder, that was when you kind of knew it was unlikely to play out. And also the measure move on it was pointed down towards like, you know, below 10,000, which I think is just, that's not a reasonable target as of this moment in time. You know, so kind of indicative that it wasn't going to play out. But here's the thing, you know, what a lot of people don't know about implied moves with head and shoulders. You know, everyone knows that you can, or most people know that you can just, you know, imply to the downside. Obviously, that's going to be another $4,000 or $5,000 low. But you can also do, and what is even more compelling is, of course, the failure target to the upside, of which that did tell us about the $69,000 high well in advance, which we actually did call out on this channel over the summer. And we have the same sort of thing going on right here as well, right? In this case, it's a little bit less in this case, but we do have left shoulder, right shoulder, head in this case. Your neckline would be right around about $40,000 territory. You know, we could apply this move to the downside, obviously, and that would be pointed down towards, you know, significantly new lows at $13,000. I think that again would be a bit of an aggressive target for considering where Bitcoin is right now. But in the same case, if and when Bitcoin does get above that $52,000 territory, which obviously would be implied if we do see even the bear trap move play out, or the bull trap move play out, plus the measure move off of the falling channel for CME, well, that would obviously imply that, you know, it would get above $52,000, and that would imply that we potentially could be seeing some major targets up towards, you know, $75,000 to $80,000 territory. So I do want to be on the board of saying that, as well as, I mean, that is actually rather consistent, especially when you do see formations like this kind of complete, not necessarily in like the most obvious sense. So I do think that that is worth knowing right now. That's kind of what's at stake, and just kind of put my own thoughts on this one. Yeah, basically, I do think that Bitcoin's got at least another bounce off this region. Does the bounce bring us back above, what was it on the hourly? I think it was about 42,400. Then it would extend the bounce significantly more, probably back up just north of $43,000 territory. And at that point, this starts to look a lot more like, again, a bit more of a complex short-term, medium-term reversal with your next big regions right around about $44,000 territory, of which then next short-term move, probably looking at this area right here between 45 and 46, or a little bit higher than that. And then above there on a higher term time frame closure, we can start to really look for those next implied targets to play out to, you know, maybe even the mid $50,000 territory, and then come back to it after that. If we start to see rejections and major weakness in the mid $50,000 territory, that's gonna be a pretty bad sign for probably Bitcoin working its way down to, let's say, 30,000 or so. But until then, I would still be giving this asset a chance, as you know, it's been pretty damn beat up to the downside with any like legitimately amazing bounces for your higher term timeframes like the 5-day and the weekly, which typically do judge macro direction. So I would be open-minded towards that. Hopefully that was helpful, and there you go for Bitcoin, sirs and